listen to reason. Will you open your eyes?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Atheist Experience. I am your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Don Baker, who will be talking about the failure of prayer.
Well, today I want to talk about the failure of prayer. I've been doing kind of a series on the failures of Christianity, focusing mostly on Christianity, but religion in general. I've talked about the failure of the Christian-based abortion policies. I've talked about the failure of killing Jews. I've talked about the failure of the Catholic pedophilia scandal.
I object. They've been very successful in killing Jews.
Right, and very successful at molesting children. Anyway, so I've got many examples this year that I'm going to hopefully bring out and talk about failures, and it's my hope that people in the audience will look objectively at these failures and say, maybe this belief in this Christianity thing is misguided. Look at all the failures that they have. So today, talking about the failure of prayer, I'm going to talk about originally some Bible quotes where Jesus is telling you how to pray and what you can get when you pray. Then I'll ask, what if prayer worked? Then we'll talk briefly about the Templeton prayer study, which is a pretty good prayer study. And we'll ask, what's the harm? What's the harm in prayer? So there's 5 very good Bible quotes where Jesus in first person is talking about prayer. One of them is Matthew 7:7. I'm going to skip that one because it's pretty long. Another is Matthew 17:20, where he says, "For truly I say to you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you." So that's one quote. It's pretty powerful. You can move mountains with your voice. Mark 11:24, Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." So whatever you ask for. John 14:12 through 14. "Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and the greater works than these will he do, because I go unto the Father. Whatever you ask for in my name, I will do it. And the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it." So another prayer quote. One more, Mark 11:24. "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." So, I'm going the wrong way. So, these are direct quotes from Jesus. It's a very clear, consistent message. Pray and you'll get what you pray for, goodies from God. There are no weasel words. There's none of this taking stuff out of context and trying to misinterpret the Bible. That's what it really says.
And I gotta say, if any of this was right, we'd all be theists already, considering all the people who have directly said they will pray for us.
Right. So either this prayer works, which we're pretty sure it doesn't, us atheists don't, or either Jesus is a liar or the Bible's false, because these are supposedly first-person quotes in the Bible from Jesus, so either the Bible's inaccurate or Jesus lied when he said those things and the Bible recorded those lies properly. So we'll see that prayer doesn't work, and even Christians demonstrate by their actions that they know it doesn't work. So here's a challenge. I often give these challenges when I'm talking with, or arguing with theists. I say, well, all you believers in the audience, pray right now to your God that I, and Russell too, what the heck, we'll both convert to Christianity during this episode today. And you can call in with your God-provided arguments and wow us, or you can pray that God directly intercedes, or whatever you want, okay? Now, both you and your God want us to convert. I mean, that's one of the deals of Christianity, right? You want to get more converts, and I want to be converted this way. So there's no free will problem. I want you to call in and convert me. So my free will is not being jeopardized in any way. I know there's this silly free will argument. So for you in the audience, will we be converted in the next 40 minutes or so? I think the answer is no. So we won't. But we have theists in the audience, so I welcome them to do that.
Right. I've heard Matt say this. Pray first, then call us.
Then call it, right.
And then we'll see how your arguments do.
Right. Yeah, often there's a whole slew of arguments. They say one argument and then another argument and another argument. Well, give me your best one, or give me your God-endorsed one, or whatever. So you mentioned what would prayer be like? The world would be a very different place if prayer worked, wouldn't it? There'd be no need to pass the collection plate at church. The pastors would have all the money they need. They'd have no need to do evangelism or missionary work because they'd just pray and everybody would be converted. There'd no need to use the government to try to stop other people's abortions. No need to do that because their prayer would stop that. All gays would be rehabilitated. There'd be no call for same-sex marriages from gays. There'd be no pesky atheists, Muslims, or Jews. There'd only be one true religion rather than tens of thousands of sects. And clearly religious leaders don't believe in prayer. Otherwise, they would just pray and make these things happen, right?
So I'm actually reminded a little bit of Bruce Almighty, which sucked, but Jim Carrey gets godlike powers, and then there's a scene where he's answering prayer which comes in via like godly email or something, and he says, well, this takes too much time, I'm just going to say yes to everyone. And then of course, horrible disasters happen, and Morgan Freeman shows up and says, well, you can't just answer everybody yes. And I mean, so God in that movie doesn't believe what the Bible says there.
Right. Well, it goes off into the whole arena of ridiculousness, right? And you'll see this, right? If prayer worked, we'd have no need for the U.S. military, right? Because we could just pray for protection.
We could pray for like a surgical strike of some sort, divine.
Right. Take out the bad guys surgically with God's, whatever. There'd be no poverty. There'd be no strife, hatred, violence. There'd be no hunger or disease. Everyone would live forever. There'd be no pedophilia scandal, no con honors ministers in jail for tax fraud. Every child would get a perfect score on their exams because they'd pray to God before taking their tests, and every football team would win all their games. But we know that doesn't happen. So it's pretty ridiculous, right? If prayer worked, so it doesn't work. So obviously prayer fails. And atheists even have a saying to that effect, that nothing fails like prayer. There's even a song. Dan Barker did a song on that. But you don't have to believe us. You can make this testable claim. You can try it out for yourself and convert me, as I mentioned earlier. And various prayer studies have been done to actually test this scientifically, right? It's a testable claim that prayer has some effect in the world. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of fraud in these studies, and there's been a lot of studies done with no controls or cooked results or data creaming, where they get the results they want and they ignore the rest of the results. But one study stands out as well conducted and significant, and it was funded by the Templeton Foundation, and the study is called STEP, or the Study for the Therapeutic Effect of Prayer, and it was done in 2006. And this is a serious study. It tested intercessory prayer on coronary artery bypass patients in hospitals who were recovering from coronary artery bypass surgery. It had a large sample size. It was done in a double-blind fashion with randomized placement of individuals into these groups. They had a control group. And the three groups were people who were prayed for, people who were not prayed for, and people who were prayed for with knowledge that they were being prayed for. So that was an interesting group. And all the prayers, among other things, were told to pray for successful surgery with a quick and healthy recovery and no complications. Very clear objective on the prayer. And the study, after many gyrations and all this machinery going forward, found that there was no significant positive effect of prayer, but there might have been perhaps a negative effect of that poor group that knew they were being prayed for, which is interesting. But that was a small effect, and maybe that was noise, so we won't dwell on that too much. But the take-home message is there's no positive effect here, and so no matter how you slice it, prayer fails.
And this is, this is the Templeton Foundation. This is not some liberal, atheistic, evil thing whose whole mission is to undermine God through science.
That's right.
Their stated mission is pretty much to reconcile science and religion, which is why they were doing this study in the first place.
Right, and since they had a negative result, it's clear that if they had a conflict of interest, the results would have gone the other way, right?
Right, and I have to say, whatever anybody else says about the Templeton Foundation, it's to their credit that they openly reported these results.
Yes, yes, and I think this is a very good use of Christian money, by the way, to fund studies to prove that it's false. Anyway, so you might say, okay, well, it may be false hope, or people are praying for no reason. They're not really going to get anything. What's the harm? What's the harm in this? Well, I found 5 things that are pretty harmful. One is that prayer leads a person into thinking they've done something. So if there's an earthquake on the other side of the earth and you pray for these people, you might be deluded into thinking you've actually done something for these people, and when in actuality you've done nothing. And it's not helpful. It may make you feel better, but it has no impact on the world. So another problem is that prayer masks mental illness. If you're talking to God and God's talking back to you, you probably need help. If people who have gotten these messages from God, many of them are go off and kill people or whatever, or they're not getting the help they need. And getting sucked into religion and religious interpretation of these sorts of things is probably not in the best interest of these people. Anyway, so that's a bad thing. Prayer leads to a blame the victim mentality. So, if going back to this earthquake or tsunami idea, if that really was God's will, then who are you to go and help these people if God really meant to destroy these people? Maybe you should help out and kill them yourself, right? Maybe, it turns the whole idea on its ear. And this has actually happened in many cases. For example, in the Lisbon earthquake, they had this terrible earthquake in I think it was the 1600s. And then they went out and looked for people who actually caused it, and they ended up killing a whole bunch of people who supposedly caused this thing. Anyway, so this whole divine retribution thing is just crazy. 2 more things. One is prayer is mostly used in our society for pandering and demagoguery. So think of Rick Perry, who prayed for rain and later had his prayer rally. Well, as an atheist, this looks like bad theater staged to manipulate the ignorant, is really what it looks like.
And it's worth pointing out that Texas had something like the driest summer on record.
Right.
After this prayer rally happened. So
yeah, there's this joke that he prayed for rain and then Texas lit on fire because of the
I think we made that joke on the Nonprofits. I'm not sure.
Well, I think it was Colbert. But anyway,
okay.
So Seneca the Younger, back in the mid-1st century AD, said, "Religion is guarded by the common people as true, by the wise as false, and by the rulers as useful." And yes, it is very useful. Okay, so in conclusion, we've looked at some Bible quotes that were first-person Bible quotes from Jesus, and like every other time a religion makes a testable claim, a miraculous testable claim, it's proven to be false. And that was just and so prayer is just one common type of this sort of fraud, and you shouldn't rely on it. You shouldn't follow people that are trying to pray in order to get God's favor, these sorts of things. So when a religion like Christianity fails on a testable claim like prayer, why should anybody trust the untestable claims that they're making, like souls or life after death or heaven and hell? Why should you believe any of that if they're lying about the stuff you can test? So that's it.